continues to be an issue. I've been working with the police and City Hall to assess and resolve these problems as they become apparent. The bike lanes on North Park Street have met with mixed results so far from the people who drive this stretch of road. It's a one-year pilot project, and input from all of its users will help us decide if it becomes a permanent feature once the top coat is applied. Forestry service and stump removal are behind schedule currently. We're in the process of establishing an in-house forestry operation to improve this service. On-street parking in selected areas has become an issue, and efforts by staff to reduce or eliminate parking on streets has been met by resistance from local residents in some cases. We just recently passed a noise bylaw that will allow our bylaw enforcement officers to deal more proactively with noise complaints in the community because the police are far too busy to deal with these kind of complaints. While these issues are the most current ones being dealt with in Ward 3, the job also entails issues that affect more than one ward or the city as a whole. And as a councillor, I must be able to remain objective in my voting choices to the best benefit of everyone affected or impacted by the decisions made.
Councillors often make decisions on issues that affect not only the ward they represent, but the entire community. An example might be a business that wants to locate in your ward, which is opposed by the majority of your constituents, but would provide employment and assessment that benefits the entire community. How will you balance the wishes of your constituents you represent with the needs of the community at large?
Ms. Brantford, we'll start with you on that one.
I would definitely take that we're all part of the same city and share services and responsibilities for them. We all benefit by virtue of improved services and facilities and infrastructure throughout the city. It ties us together, and I think that's bringing the community together as a whole. We should look at bringing it together and not shy away as separate wards. I think a little bit of education as well for different wards. If, for instance, if I was explaining the $150,000 assessment we're doing on the Civic Center, and we've closed a municipally funded child care center, I would have to be very stringent in how I would have to explain that. And I would definitely advocate for what my ward is requiring me to advocate for. But I think that if we bring back the reasoning behind it, if it makes sense and it's good for the city as a whole, then they'll understand why it is that we're asking for certain things. Thank you.
I've always placed the concerns of my constituents first and foremost. And in any conflict situation that we've seen in past and in future, I would always side with the constituents. We've had a couple of circumstances which have been sort of unique within the Third Ward in the last few years. One was Farm Boy, and the other one is the seniors residence building that will be constructed on North Park Street. Farm Boy, of course, the two ward councillors were completely opposed to the situation of that store right behind a residential neighborhood. They were very concerned about noise and smell, and it was necessary to be clear with the folks living behind that store, though, that the odds are significantly against them winning that fight. And where you have that sort of a conflict, you have to be clear with the constituent that your chances are not good of being successful, and you have to plan for the worst possible outcome. And in that case, you have to make sure for your constituents that you get the very best deal you can. And in that circumstance, it involved some berming and some trees and some fencing, and involved slight variation to the design of the building to be able to mitigate some of those impacts. So it's important to be able to recognize reality while still at the same time advocating for the best deal you can get for your folks.
Well, communication is a key factor here. Of course, the priority goes to Ward 3 residents. With any project comes to Ward 3, you have to communicate with the residents. You need to talk to them. You need to explain to them why it is good for them. At the same time, you have to look at the whole benefit for the whole city. So it's communication and explaining to people the problem or these businesses that is going to benefit them. That will be the key. The other thing is, of course, like you need to go with the democracy. Like if that's will benefit the whole city, then you have to go with it. Thank you.
While I fully support development to help increase our tax base and provide tax revenue, each development must be considered on its own merits. We already have policies in place that require public notice to go out to the neighbors affected by a potential development. A delegation process at City Hall and the opportunity for meetings in the ward to meet with those affected by the development and to expedite compromises by either party or both when possible, and hopefully a consensus to everyone's satisfaction. Development must be allowed to happen, and we must continue to make it a process in which all parties can work together to make the best process and project completion possible. It has been my experience as a councillor that many developers are open to possible adjustments to their plans to some degree, which would give those constituents affected by the new development in their neighborhood some confidence in coming forward with their concerns or suggestions. And as Dan mentioned, we did that on North Park Street when the nursing home was going in. Initially, it was planned for 5 stories. And the people next door didn't want somebody looking down into their backyards from 5 stories high. And in consultation with the developer, we were able to get that reduced to an acceptable level for everyone concerned. So that's a project that'll go forward with people a little more happy about it than they would have been with it being 5 stories.
I agree that the need to balance the constituents of your ward is going to be that balancing act in terms of the greater needs of the city of Brantford. However, I believe that community engagement and communication with the residents in Ward 3 is going to be crucial. So those two things, community engagement and communication with the constituents in Ward 3. Hopefully we can come up with decisions that are best outcomes for the city overall, and through that process, through that community engagement process, engage the constituents in Ward 3 so that they come around to kind of everyone's way of thinking that is in the best interest of the city.
The city's operating and capital budgets combined total more than $200 million. A private sector company with a similar budget would require its decision makers to have the skills and expertise necessary to make sound fiscal decisions. The question: what past professional experience do you have that will best enable you to make sound decisions based on business principles that will benefit your constituents and the community at large?
Mr. McCreary, we'll start with you.
Thank you very much. Well, I guess I have twofold experience. First of all, I've been a councillor for 15 years and participated in a number of budgets, and have learned that the big numbers aren't quite as scary as the small numbers are. As well, I've been involved in bottom line responsibility for my own and previous companies in which I was employed in a management capacity, going back to 1980, and dealing with some companies that were multi-million-dollar companies. Having said that, I've also seen around this table some people be very successful who've had no small business or big business experience. It's a steep learning curve, and some folks do very well without any sort of technical or experiential background. And on the other hand, just having some sort of background doesn't necessarily ensure success. We've seen outcomes go both ways in this council room in my time here. Some folks who've never really understood the process, never gotten it, and who've been spectators throughout. And other people who are such a quick learn that, by their second or third year, they're chairing the finance committee. So those are the kind of experiences we've had here, but I think my experience in the private sector and the business sector and here at council stands me in good stead to be able to do that.
I have a lifetime experience in building projects and building relationship with in our community to make it a better place. I have 10 years experience in construction project management, and I have 20 years experience in the information technology field. Plus also I have 20 years of volunteering in the community, and my recent project is taking care of the Syrian refugee project, which is I work with different organizations, United Church, St. Pius, Laurier, can't remember so many of them. 15 families, they came to Brantford, and I helped them settle in to be a better citizen. My professional and qualification experience will be an asset for this council. It's time for change. It's time for a new perspective and a new ideas. Thank you.
I was raised to be financially responsible and to have a strong work ethic. My first best mentors were my parents. I've been a parent volunteer for events and trips at my son's school, sports, and Cubs and Scouts over the years. I've sat on boards for political riding associations. Currently, I sit on the board of Rosewood House as the chair, a residential treatment facility for people with mental health issues. I have been active in Movember campaign raising money for Prostate Cancer Canada for research. I've been a past owner and landlord of a 20-unit multi-residential property in Toronto and other residential properties and municipalities I have lived in over 20 years. I've developed various transferable skills as a result of my experiences in real estate investment, including an understanding of accounting practices, positive cash flow, long-term equity building, which I have utilized in my work as a city councillor for Brantford while sitting on the finance committee and various other committees. As a Toronto fire captain, I've also been responsible for overseeing a crew and making quick decisions in emergency situations. As a councillor, I try to be objective when deciding how to vote on issues affecting the people of Ward 3 and Brantford, not only in hearing presentations from delegations and staff, but also respecting the input of constituents affected by the decisions I am required to make. I hope my efforts show the best attempts to provide consensus when possible and compromise when necessary.
I have 28 years experience running my own business as an employer. Budgets, cash flows are critical for every business. I also have 10 years experience as a business consultant. I've literally launched a couple of hundred businesses, which included developing their business plans, their cash flows, their marketing plans in order to ensure success for those businesses. My volunteer experience, I have spent a significant amount of time developing budgets for not-for-profit organizations, both program budgets and project budgets, capital fund.
I have 8 years of university and college education. I own Jackrabbits, currently a local business in town. And it's, as Linda said, you work with cash flow every day, ARAP. I've worked with Needed Care as office manager for 7 years. During that time, we won the Chamber Business Excellence Award. I grew that business with Chantel from 2 massage therapists to 8 employees in less than 2 years. I've also done many advocate type volunteer positions. I sat on Baby's Brant board, which led to the Baby Friendly Initiative, where we were able to get a lactation consultant, a publicly funded lactation consultant. And since 2015, that's still been in place for new mothers. I sit sorry, I don't sit. I work with Girl Guides Canada as a leader. I've also worked with Scouts Canada as a leader. I have the drive to learn. I learn quickly. I work hard, and I have lots of business experience. Thank you.
Ms. Hunt, I cut you off unfairly. Did you want to finish your answer?
Thank you. I was thinking that was the fastest 2 minutes that I had ever that I ever encountered. So I've, as I said, my business experience working as a business consultant with a couple of hundred new businesses, getting them off the ground. Volunteer, I sit as chair of the Ontario Trillium Foundation's grant review team. We are responsible for scrutinizing the grantee budgets as they come forward to us, so that we ensure that we are doing the best that we can do to grant money in our community. So a significant amount of experience with that. I also have some experience with capital campaigns from a fundraising perspective, and also with some large-scale fundraising events.
Our community faces a number of transportation issues, and the lack of progress on the BSAR, Southern Access Route, is certainly at or close to the top of the list. It impacts not only the residents and businesses in wards 1 and 5, but the entire community. Other initiatives, such as the Mohawk Lake project, are being adversely affected by the delay, and there's increasing demand to make a decision and move forward. So the question, this project has been under discussion and planned for decades. Which of the routes currently being proposed do you support, and will you commit to voting for a specific route by December 2020, which is the end of the second year of your term?
Mr. Ahmad, we'll start with you.
Well, I don't have all the information about them, especially this the PHSR. And all I know, I think there's another route 18. So I have to have read the file and see what's the proposed, so I can make the right decision for the city. So, thank you.
The best route for the BSAR is the one that was originally proposed. Unfortunately, there's problems with that route. That would be my preferable route. The alternative that can be done quicker is the western route that takes it up through Oak Park Road. That's something that we're going to have to take a look at seriously. But the original route, if we can negotiate with the people from Six Nations, hopefully we can exchange services for some of their land so that they can build much needed affordable housing in exchange for the right to build the road across. We can maybe get started on that sooner rather than later. An alternative is the Brant County Road 18. This is something I suggested in 1999 before I was even on council as an alternative to moving the Wayne Gretzky Parkway in front of the mall. That would have something that would have set up a 400 series highway alternative at the 403 that would have allowed the 424 discussion to have a starting point in Brantford that made sense. Instead, that discussion ended up going nowhere. The idea that this is holding up Mohawk Lake, I think the best thing we can do with Mohawk Lake is blow the dam and put some fill in there and make some sports fields. Because even though there is a plan to clean up Mohawk Lake, the only water flowing into it is storm runoff. So given a couple of good storms, and it's going to be right back to the way it is. It's going to be $6 million wasted. That's $6 million that can be better used somewhere else. So the fact that it's holding up the Mohawk Lake cleanup, I don't see as a problem. And the alternatives for the BSAR, I mean, eventually it'd be nice to build both, but they're very expensive projects, and we're going to have to pick one and concentrate on one first.
I was in high school when the original BSAR discussion running behind Pauline Johnson started, so I've been aware of this discussion since I was literally a teenager. I do not think that it is ever going to be built over the glebe lands behind Pauline Johnson. So I think that it's incumbent upon council to really move this project forward and to really take a good hard look at the alternative routes. I see pros and cons to both Oak Park Road and Brant County Road 18 in terms of moving people out of the city where they need to go. The other thing that I think that really needs to be taken into account are the costs of these alternatives and what other levels of government are going to be involved in the funding to make these happen. Absolutely, the question is, would I be committed to moving this project forward, or a decision on this project forward by December 2020? Yes, this project has been sitting on someone's desk and certainly been sitting around this council table for a lot of years, and at some point, yes, we do really need to get moving on an alternative.
I have to concur. Brantford's growth is fast beginning to outstrip its current system of roads, leading to congestion and many bottlenecks. The rapid growth of West Brant and anticipated growth to north towards Cambridge and east towards Hamilton continues to cement our place as a central hub for everyone to live. So we need to catch up by looking at plans that will better move our people and our goods. That may include, as we've talked about, a bridge in West Brant, or a completion in a route that reconnects Wayne Gretzky Parkway to access the route to West Brant, or 18 different things. But we need to come to a decision, and we need to review traffic on major arteries to keep it moving, and we need to make a decision. So yes, I commit to making a decision by 2020. Thank you.
I agree completely. We've considered this since I was in short pants as well, back in the 70s. I think John Starkey was a councillor when this first arose. Quite frankly, we need to complete this as a loop road beginning at 403 in the east and ending at 403 in the west. So completing the section behind Pauline Johnson Collegiate, as well as coming up through Oak Hill Cemetery and the right-of-way that already exists there. We've got to think about generations here, and we not only have to provide that corridor, but we have to consider the future of transportation as other communities have. And completion of that is going to allow us to do something in the way of light rail, maybe 25 or 30 or 40 years down the road as well within that corridor. There's a challenge with our neighbors to the south, of course, in terms of crossing the glebe lands. But it's been some time since we've engaged in respectful discussions on a pure basis, equal to equal with the folks at Six Nations. And as Greg said earlier, there's a give and take that can happen here because they have a need for housing their own people, right? They don't have enough housing there, and they're looking at the lands here. And certainly in exchange for the services and some other considerations, I think we can achieve it as long as the right people are talking to the right people on each side.
Sorry. Decisions made by municipal governments affect our day-to-day lives more than any other level of government. Municipalities fund infrastructure and provide core services such as roads and sewers. Our community has experienced a number of incidents in the last 12 months that have strained or outright compromised some of our key infrastructure. We are struggling with a lack of capacity to service growth, both new and infill. The question: how will you ensure that infrastructure is a priority for the next term of council so that we will have the necessary core services that are critical to our continued success?
Mr. Martin, we're going to lead with you.
Thank you. The infrastructure deficit is a huge problem and usually quoted over a 50-year period or more. I have long advocated for utilizing more durable materials in capital investments. For example, metal roofing on pitched roofs. While it might cost almost double for the materials and installation compared to an asphalt roof, it would last 5 times as long, removing the equivalent of 4 asphalt roofing jobs from the deficit based on a 10-year cycle for asphalt roofs. Similar cost savings in other areas where paying a little more up front will save big down the line will free up capital over the long term for future capital investments and improvements. We are a few years into an asset management plan which will require us to monitor infrastructure to avoid surprises like we had with the pumping station situation. And it will help us prioritize our capital spending to deal with the most critical issues before they become crises. This is a problem that has developed over decades and will take decades to address. but it is imperative that we start now with a proper plan for the future of Brantford.
I believe that annually, City Council needs to undertake a long-range planning initiative for the repair and the replacement of infrastructure, and that long-range planning needs to go on an annual basis. It needs to be so that there are no surprises, so that we are aware of what our infrastructure needs are now and in the future and going forward 5, 10 years. We need to have that in place so that we're able to make capital investments in infrastructure on a timely basis, so that there are no surprises, so that we don't have issues arising with development. The other thing that really needs to be taken into account is, as we look at development, the infrastructure that's required for that development also needs to be taken into account and worked into any long-range planning. So it certainly needs to be something that's looked at on an annual basis, and certainly a key initiative for council to undertake.
I believe that long-term needs covering major projects should be handled by a dedicated infrastructure renewal fund, similar to that's in place in other cities. Near-term or maintenance needs are met by capital budget, and I think that the budget needs to be thoroughly reviewed to ensure that priorities are met. The ability to raise the funding for these without resorting to tax increases may lie in the decisions like allowing marijuana sales or production in our city. Thank you.
Well, I think it was on Wood Street the other day. I had a chat with a gentleman about his tax rates. And he thought he pays enough in taxes, and I had to agree with him. And he thought that's enough. He's paying enough. We should be able to keep the roads and sidewalks and sewers and bridges and buildings in good repair with the money he's already paying. And I think that's true, too. Of course, Greg and I were on the losing end of a vote that sees the City of Brantford taxpayers on the hook for a 1.5% surcharge dedicated specifically to infrastructure. And I think that's wrong-headed. We should be applying funding first and foremost to the needs that we have rather than the wants. We spend far too much on tertiary operational matters here, on fifth-level services we're neither required or mandated to provide, and which could easily be provided on a fee-for basis, but it's not here in this community. We've seen a number of errors that have happened here in the last year as well. God bless her, our GM, Public Works, Beth Goodyear, has found a number of things that need rapid attention, one of them being the pumping station deficits. We found that out because the City of Brantford wanted to build its own 22-unit building down at Eagle Place, and the engineering department said, I don't think everybody better be flushing the toilet at the same time anymore in that neighborhood. So we were limited, and we could not even develop our own small building there. We're undertaking measures now to mitigate that, but it's an embarrassment to us that this went so long without being caught by anybody. And the flood that happened in February is another prime example of some operational difficulties we've got. That was clearly the entire fault of the City of Brantford, which failed to take into account the fact that the flood was coming on the given day that GRC announced. And as a result, we didn't do the proper job, we didn't do the work we should have, and a lot of people suffered needlessly with flooded basements and damages.
Well, infrastructure, I think everybody agrees that we have really a crisis in Brantford with the infrastructure. Like pump station are, I think, working 50%. I think roads are in bad condition. Also, the flooded for the basement of many residents in Brantford, the main flood in the Grand River. This is really, it's a crisis, and this has to be at the top priority in the coming council members. The same thing, I did talk to many people, and everybody is telling me, I pay enough taxes. Like, what am I getting from? The roads are bad. My basement is flooded. This has to be the top priority of the city before we move in any new project. And if I get elected, this will be the first thing to be done. Thank you.
The City of Brantford's success is closely tied to the success of our neighbors in the county of Brant. We share a boundary and have had some success sharing resources. There's much more that could be done. What are two key and substantive areas or services that you believe could be improved upon by partnering with our neighbors in the county?
Ms. Hunt?
The first one I would like to address would be transportation. I think we really need to look at transportation, specifically transit, accessible transportation, and specialized transportation going beyond the boundaries of the city of Brantford and including the county of Brant. So the transportation working group that I was part of through the Brantford Brant Roundtable on Poverty agreed that that would be one of the services that would be best addressed by a joint group with the county. That certainly would be my first priority. Secondly, I think we need to look at, and I know that we do already have a regional economic development, but again, it's in the best interests of everybody in the county and the city of Brantford to work collaboratively on economic development.
I have to agree, transportation would be my number one choice. I believe that we need to work collaboratively with Six Nations and Brant County. I think that separation is no longer, we need to come together so that we can get projects completed and respect each other and work together. The other second piece of that I would want to work on with Brant County and Six Nations is tourism. If we work together, we will find that economically our revenue will increase. If we look at just the tourism piece, in my opinion, of Brant County, I think that it would be great to join them collaboratively just for that. And the same with Six Nations. Thank you.
County Councillor Chambers and I brought resolutions to our respective councils 2 terms ago to create the Shared Services Committee. And out of that Shared Services Committee came the Boundary Adjustment Committee, which successfully negotiated a boundary adjustment and intake of lands into the city of Brantford. Since that point in time, the committee has been struck again, and we're certainly well underway in terms of looking at options to go forward. We've already agreed to share an emergency measures coordinator, which saves city and county half of each salary, certainly. We also already share social services and ambulance, and the committee is currently underway, actually, in looking at transportation issues and library issues. And you asked for 2 that I would like to see come together in terms of greater efficiency and dollar savings, and those would be police and fire. And I think both communities should dedicate themselves to, before the decade is out, having a joint regional fire and police service.
First, I wanted to welcome all the Brant County citizens who are now a Brantford citizen after the new expansion with the boundaries. I wanted to extend my hand to those and to trust the future relationship. Brant County, Six Nations are neighbors. It is we share roads together, we share businesses, and for some reason I know there's I don't have all the information, but it looks like the relationship is very tense between both. What we need to do, we need to rebuild this relationship based on mutual interest and on respect and fairness. That's the bottom line. So there should be, I know there's a committee, which is a joint economic development committee. It's already in, but I think it's not active. We need to revive it, and they need to work harder to make the relationship better. Thank you.
Well, Brantford and the County of Brant have had a unique relationship over the last several decades. However, it is improving. The tide has turned, and with the establishment of shared services between the city and county, the John Noble Home, social services, the ambulance service, and the Brant County Board of Health are all services that have benefited from the cooperative relationship between Brantford and Brant County. With municipal resources being stretched to the limit, there may be opportunities in the future to find cost efficiencies for the city and the county by creating a single expanded police force for the city and county combined. As well, economic development might benefit from partnership with business development in both the Cainesville area east of Brantford and the airport area to the west of Brantford. If we cannot find a mutually satisfactory solution to the issue of the glebe lands for the BSAR, we might need to work with the county to look at providing alternate routes around the periphery of Brantford. We have the potential to increase our partnering efforts with the county in future years. We just need to have the commitment to continue to see the possibilities and build on what we've already established.
Workforce is a critical issue for the business community nationally, provincially, and here at home. Our chamber members in the manufacturing and skilled trades sector place access to a skilled workforce second on their list of concerns, with business taxes being the first. The question: what is the role of the municipality in the development of training and post-secondary opportunities? And do you support the municipality contributing financially to further these opportunities?
Ms. Sternford, we're going to start with you on this one.
Thank you. Local industries that are claiming they can't find people needed for jobs, I believe the federal and provincial government are required to help with that. I don't know if we're lobbying properly. If they're not doing their job, we need to fill in the gap and work on industries and training. This could involve working with the Board of Education on skills training and development, as well as with local industries to meet their needs. Thank you.
We have blurred the lines of responsibility in this province and in this city for quite some time. The city taxpayers picked up the tab to establish a university here in town. We've picked up the tab to enter the healthcare field, to pick up where the provincial government has failed us on a number of levels. We have encouraged Conestoga's, well, of course, we've got a history of encouraging community colleges here, and hopefully the one we have now is going to stay and succeed. Let's cross our fingers and make sure that happens. The short answer is no. I don't favor further blurring of lines by the municipality investing cold hard cash in training. That's not our responsibility. It's a provincial responsibility. That's where it belongs. Let us hope that the change in outlook at Queen's Park will come to benefit communities like Brantford and be able to provide these employment opportunities. I see it every day, and my friends in business tell me every day that it's tough to get people. You know, the experience has been you might place an advert, you get 50 responses, 25 of them may call you back for an interview. Of the 25, 10 may turn up, and on the first day of work, you're lucky if everybody shows. It's just like Calgary was in the early 80s here. We seem to be in something of a low employment boom here, benefiting the employee, but certainly not benefiting the employer and the manufacturer in this community. We've seen that our new manufacturer of electric motors in the West End can't find people, skilled people, high-paying jobs, can't fill them. But that's not something that the city of Brantford can resolve. That's got to come from a senior level of government.
Well, I've talked to many businesses, and they're really having shortages of skilled people, and that's a problem. The problem is that everybody is bouncing the ball to the other. Like it's some people say it's the responsibility of the federal, provincial, city, but at the end, who is suffering? Suffering is the people. You know, more jobs is that mean this person is gonna work and he's gonna pay taxes. Taxes coming back to us. Definitely, I will support the training for the people. Thank you.
I'm well acquainted with the history of lack of post-secondary opportunities available in Brantford. I myself traveled out of town to get my college education, and my own sons were required to seek post-secondary education opportunities out of town at much greater expense, as their living costs had to be incurred in their education costs. Brantford had come a long way since Mohawk College was our only local option for post-secondary. Efforts by the city and other stakeholders, over the last 15 years have brought the satellite campus of Laurier University to our downtown. Despite the loss of Mohawk College and Nipissing University, it is encouraging to note that we now have the arrival of Conestoga College in our downtown core. In addition, Six Nations Polytechnic has taken over the former Mohawk campus on Elgin Street. And the Brantford Flying Club at the Brantford Airport has started the Brantford Aviation College program, a 14-month post-secondary program to train and qualify single-engine commercial pilots. I'm looking forward to the future to seeing more and more post-secondary institutions and programs locate to Brantford, and I'm actively working to see that these opportunities become possible. I've always been a supporter of post-secondary education and training in Brantford, and direct answer to your question, I've always supported initial funding to bring a new campus to town. However, once they get established, then it's time to stop taking over the province's duties and force the province to start funding these operations.
As a business owner, I agree. I can tell you in 28 years, I've struggled quite often with trying to find staff and staff that we're able to keep. A vibrant local workforce is key to attracting and retaining businesses to our community. If you want a business to come here, they have to be able to hire people to do the jobs that they're bringing to the community. There is a shortage of skilled trades, but I believe there is also a significant shortage in just the general workforce. People that are looking to hire general laborers, people that are looking to find people to work in their coffee shops. There is just a shortage overall of people that are able and willing to work. The shifting demographic sees more people leaving the workforce through retirement than we have people entering it. And what I think is important to direct students to as they're working their way through high school and then going off to post-secondary education or even just entering the workforce is that those students are directed to where the needs are. The province has a chronic shortage of personal support workers, which are going to be in demand even more as the population ages. And that is that's a critical issue for our aging population. So I think we listen to the experts, people like the Workforce Planning Board that look at our trends, they look at our best practices, and we support the initiatives that they undertake so that we can develop a workforce of people that are needed and that they are able to employ.
Tony, next question.
We congratulate you for putting your name forward to represent the citizens and businesses in Brantford. The role of a city councillor is demanding and requires an in-depth knowledge of everything from potholes to the city's strategic plan. Question, tell us why you would be the best person for the job.
Mr. McCurry, you're going to lead us off.
Thank you, Tony. Well, I believe that I'm well qualified for this job. The job really consists of two components. One component is serving constituents and looking after their day-to-day issues and problems and needs and desires. And I've been involved in the contracting industry my whole life, so I know what it's like to deal with clientele and to make sure that we treat them in a customer-friendly manner. And I apply those lessons to my job as councillor. The other portion, of course, of the job is the job that we do in this room and that we do in committee work, and that's helping to direct a pretty big operation, which one can never completely learn. I don't know how they do it in the provincial government, but here, you know, you're always learning every day, and learning is something I've done all my life. You know, high school, university, as well as learning through the mentors and folks who I've respected throughout my life. As well, you know, you have to have some technical background to be able to understand some of what we do here. And having been involved in contracting earlier in my career, I do have some basic understanding of what we do in public works and what we do in engineering and what we do in planning. So I have those life experiences that I've applied here. And of course, I've been here for the last 15 years. And I think that one after having served 15 years should know a thing or two.
I am a resident of this city for the last 21 years. I see other cities around us are moving forward. And as a concerned citizen, I do not feel the current councillors are doing the job with all respect. What are they doing to promote the city? We deserve a councillor who is committed to ensure our city grasp all opportunities in front of us. We need new faces in the city council. Time is changing fast, and we cannot stay behind. I bring my professional and academic qualification and over 20 years of community service. I love people. I enjoy working with people. I'm a builder. I want to build Brantford for the better. Ward 3 resident can trust that I would be an active councillor in all files, and that constituents can trust I will fight for their concerns. However, my top priority is going to be focusing on accountability, efficient spending, promoting growth, job growth, and helping our most vulnerables. Thank you.
I was born and raised in Ward 3. I've spent most of my adult life in Ward 3, so I know Ward 3 very, very well. As a landlord, I did all my own repairs, so I'm a jack of all trades, so I have a basic understanding of a lot of functions that are scaled up to the city level. As a councillor, I've been involved in 14 budgets, and let me tell you, that's not an easy job. The first time you're in over your head, but after the first year, you start to get a feel for what's going on, and you start to understand where staff are trying to hide things and where the waste is in the budget. The trick is to get enough other councillors to agree with you to cut some of the waste from the budget. There's been many times where I've found waste that was glaringly obvious, and yet before Dan got on, I couldn't even get a seconder. So it's very difficult to deal with the budget. Some members of council, the only reason they go to budget is to make sure that their sacred ox doesn't get gored. They have no real understanding or care to really understand the budget. And we need that on council. We need several people who understand the budget enough to dig in and find the waste. And as with my 14 years on council, I bring a wealth of experience to the table, and that's needed because the staff have a tendency to run roughshod over new councillors. So you need some experience around the table who know how to deal with staff, how to make things work through the organization in order to get things done. So I'd appreciate your support on the 22nd.
I have 30 years experience in roles that are governance, leadership, and strategic planning. I feel that from my experience that I bring a lot to the table, and I would like to bring that experience to City Council to act on behalf of the residents of Ward 3 and also the residents of the greater city of Brantford. I do believe that it's important to be supportive of the constituents in Ward 3, but also have the eye on the bigger picture as well, from a budgeting standpoint, from our infrastructure, from capital planning, from operational budgets. Those are the types of things that I think I do have the experience. I bring that experience to the table, and I would look forward to the opportunity.
I have a lot of experience in business, and I'm very dedicated and caring. I put people in my ward first. I want to listen to their concerns, address their concerns, and move their concerns forward. I learn very fast, as you can see with my experience in growing businesses. I sit on a local EDA, so I have lots of political experience. And I think that growing Brantford together is important. And I want to be putting my best foot forward and working hard for my ward constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, Rick.
In a recent survey of chamber member businesses, 69% of the respondents said they feel only somewhat or not at all supported by the municipality in the operation of their businesses. The question, what changes would you propose to create a more business-friendly and cooperative environment?
Mr. Madden, you're going to start us off.
I was a business owner 10 years ago. I had a restaurant in downtown. It lasted for 3 years, and due to the lack of support, I lost my business, lost all my money. The city should work harder to reach out to the small businesses. There should be some sort of communication. Like, if I talk about this example, it was in downtown that, according to the plans, that downtown's gonna have the crowd in 5 years or in 10 years. There was no crowd. This is that was the problem. So communication, it's very important. We need to help the small businesses, and plus now the times is changed. It's the new technology is there. There's all web apps everywhere. The city have to promote the small business, because more if they are successful, the city is successful. We are getting revenue from them. We need to do like some sort of business development courses for them. We need to listen to what's their problems. How can we help them? And also, everybody is saying we pay enough taxes. We need to make sure that taxes does not increase. We need more people also, like Jamie Stevenson. He promotes small businesses. We need to promote those people. We need them successful. And that's it. Thank you.
I'm not surprised that a majority of the chamber members feel that way after the city watered down the tax fairness plan that was started years before. I supported making Brantford a business-friendly community. I supported the tax fairness plan advocated for by the Chamber of Commerce some 10 years ago. Unfortunately, the plan was interrupted in a decision made during the previous term of council, delaying the improved tax benefit to local business owners and business developers. We currently have a slower variation of this tax reduction in our budget plan. I would certainly consider revisiting the original plan and look at improving on the parameters as they currently stand. I also support the efforts of the Red Tape Committee in finding ways to improve procedures, customer service, and communication for developers and business owners hoping to build, open, or grow a business in Brantford. If re-elected, I'd be willing to sit on this committee and build on ideas to continue to improve our relationship with developers and business owners.
For 28 years, I've been part of the 69%. I would agree that I have certainly felt neither engaged or supported by the municipality as a business owner, as an employer. I think that council needs to commit to engage and support the local business community. I think economic development, the only time that as a business owner I've ever heard from economic development is once a year when they're putting together the statistics for the industrial directory. So never any reach out beyond that. And I think that that's something that does need to change. I think that economic development needs to focus on new business development, but also needs to have a clear priority to engage the local business community and support the existing businesses that are here. They are the businesses that are paying taxes. They're the businesses that are employing our residents, and they do need to be supportive. I certainly do agree that any reduction in red tape is important, but the businesses need to feel that they're supported. The other thing that I think that we also need to look at is how we support workforce development so that our businesses can stay here and thrive because they have people who are willing to work for them and they are able to hire for positions they have open.
I have to agree, I'm part of that 69% as well with my business. We can look at reducing taxes or incentives for existing or new businesses. There are many ways to assist with employment programs that the city could get involved in, supplement or expanding existing programs. Actively promoting tourism and tourist areas to bring people and outside money. Shop local campaigns. I know we do have a wonderful shop local person in Brantford showing what's available here, as too many residents still seem to go outside and shop outside of Brantford. You can see that most definitely in the south end of the city. So hopefully we can find some initiatives and some promotion to bring people back to shopping local. Thank you.
Well, I get it too. I've operated a business here since 1990. I've been the chamber liaison to city council since my first year. And I get it, certainly. The best thing the city of Brantford can do to help small businesses get out of the way. We've got to commit to carrying out our plan for tax fairness. We've tweaked that a little bit in the last couple of years, and we're rolling some of the money back into that class of taxes. I'm the chair of the Red Tape Committee, and what we're doing is trying to streamline the way business deals with the city of Brantford. And I can certainly give you a couple of examples of how not to do it. We have a rather well-known company that's rebuilding after a devastating fire. And they found out at the 11th hour that they had not achieved all the permits that they needed to do, and their construction was delayed because no one told them they had to get a permit to close the sidewalk. So we're working on these types of things. We had another instance, I guess maybe in the last couple of months, where the developer was wondering where his permit was, and it turned out there was nobody at City Hall that could sign it for him. So we've learned from that mistake. But you know, we've got to come to the point at some point here in the city of Brantford when there are no more mistakes that we can make with respect to getting out of the way of business. It's not our business to incentivize, and in fact, that's probably illegal to bonus up businesses. We've just got to do the right thing, enable business to be successful here, and get out of the way.
Tony?
Brantford's overall crime rate is 60% higher than the provincial average. This statistic could deter growth and investment. How can the municipality work with police services and other organizations to reduce this number?
Mr. Barton, we'll start with you, please.
While it's true that we have a high crime rate, we also have a higher than average crime severity index. This means that we have more crimes that take more police resources. After a recent shooting in Toronto, the provincial government promised more money to deal with the problem. Several Ontario police departments have a higher crime severity index than Toronto does, including Brantford, and are petitioning the province for our share of the money to be provided resources needed to bring down our crime numbers. Police departments across the province are also dealing with a high number of officers on WSIB, since the rules were changed to make it easier to collect. Brantford is included in a group that are working with WSIB to find ways to improve this situation. While we're dealing with police resource issues, we're also dealing with the root cause of many crimes in our municipality, which is poverty. Programs like Graduate Brantford aim to provide education and skills training opportunities to more people, allowing them the skills to become gainfully employed. We are also working to reduce homelessness with a new housing strategy to ensure that everyone will have a roof over their heads and a bed to sleep in.
I believe that, yes, a high crime rate, and certainly 60% higher than other municipalities of our size, certainly will impact our growth and our development, and unfortunately gives us some negative press. I think we need to work with the police to reduce the rate by a made in Brantford solution. So what we really need to look at are what issues do we have? Poverty, homelessness, a drug strategy that we're rolling out, and come up with some best practices to address the issues that we have. I think we need to take a really good look at our community supports and services that are providing vital services in the community that are not being provided by the city, and look at the value that is being placed on our community organizations that are working with these vulnerable populations. I do think it's a regional problem, so it's something that needs to be addressed by not only the city, but our partners in the county and Six Nations. Yes, it certainly is something that council needs to be an active part of.
I definitely like to say that crime is directly related to poverty, and that I don't think closing a municipally funded daycare for single parents to work helped. I don't think that the affordable housing crisis we're in, I think there was a quote of 634 people waiting for affordable housing. That's just going to contribute more to the problems of poverty creating more crime. We can work with the local police and local agencies on a drug task force to tackle the issue of opiates and to clean up our streets. But until we fix the root problem, we cannot fix the issues of needles and such. We can try safety injection sites, but they aren't used to the root of the problem must be tackled. I support also red light cameras. As I discussed earlier, speeding in this city near our schools is horrific. I hear lots of that being brought up as issues in Ward 3. I'd actually wish that I had statistics of how many accidents are happening in school areas. But far too many people are abusing our roads and the speeds. We need to be dedicated to self-funding traffic force to catch the people who are breaking the laws and get them ticketed and fined. Thank you.
Here's some alarming numbers when one considers the crime rate and severity index. We spend $33 million on policing. The last year for which statistics were available, they responded to 2,000 alarm calls. That's probably 2 or 3 hours per officer. They responded to 800 assaults, and probably most of these assaults involve half the force turning up. 600 break-and-enters. And again, that's not only attending to the crime, but it's also attending to the after preparation of reports and all that stuff. 600 car thefts. So in this community, you've had 2,000 people who've been negatively impacted by petty crime, which is largely fueled by drugs in this community. We've begun to address some of the drug issues here with initiatives the city has taken on, but there's no clear-cut, easy solution to this. We've seen an increase in policing costs, an increase in police force members every year, but the numbers don't drop. We need a new deal, and part of, I think, the new deal has got to be allowing us to divert police resources away from things that aren't significant and letting them spend their time dealing with the break-and-enters and the assaults and the car thefts in the following court time. And we're hoping that we can move some of this onto City of Brantford bylaw enforcement officers. That really is the way to begin to allow the police to do the work that they do. And it's a very disconcerting situation that we are in now. As Greg said earlier, we had 14,000 WSIB hours lost in the last year for which statistics are available. Much has changed here, and there's a lot of work to be done on this. And despite what you may hear, there are no easy answers to this, and it's a long-term investment to get this right.
Well, I think we all agree poverty is the root cause of this issue. Drugs and like most of the like the crimes is small, like assault, theft. So we need definitely, like what's happening, like it's what we are doing now. It's not working. So maybe give more tough measures for the people who are committing these crimes. Maybe that will reduce the number. We need to also do like affordable housing. Also provide the support they need for the families, single parents. Also, we need to increase the police presence, just to have safe communities. We need also, the main thing is it ends at the community. We have to work all together. This is it's not going to work just by the police or the city. It's the whole city problem. So everybody has all different communities. They have to get together and try to work with these people who are having problems and try to help them. And hopefully that will work. Thank you.
Next question, Mr. Stern.
The city is spending $150,000 to get a cost estimate to upgrade the Civic Center to OHL standards. Similar renovations in other communities have ranged from $17.2 million to $20.5 million. Question is, would you support the upgrading of the Civic Center, and what impact would that have on the capital and operating budgets?
Ms. Hunt, can you start us off, please?
First of all, no, I would not support the city spending any money on a feasibility study or any money to upgrade the Civic Center to OHL standards. I believe that we have to be very careful and selective in terms of the types of projects that we undertake, and that would be a special interest project that I would not support. I do believe that that such a project would likely move forward with private interests if there was real interest here. So no, I'm not supportive at all of the city spending the money.
I have to say as well, I'm not in support of spending the money either. I think we need to reel back what's important, and what's important is basic needs for our infrastructure, for our child care centers that require families to have support while they work, affordable housing. So 60% of the welcome in shelter is full of seniors, and that's a scary statistic to me. I don't think $150,000 assessment on an arena upgrade when we can't fill a junior B game at this point is not even in my mind as okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that question. It's very timely. This came before council as an initiative of staff some weeks ago, and council in their wisdom created a committee to study it. And I was fortunate enough to be named to the committee, and they elected me to be the chair. So we conducted a meeting this week, and we voted unanimously to not even consider this. It's not going to proceed forward with a positive recommendation to council. It'll come back as a negative recommendation, I think, next Tuesday night. By way of history, we had a previous committee. It was called the Major Sports something or other committee. Councillor Kings and I served on it for a number of years together, and we received inquiries from 2 or 3 major junior A hockey teams during that period of time. It was our experience that they were tire kickers looking to negotiate better deals with their home communities. Brantford was a pawn in those sorts of endeavors. We're not sure that's the case with this one. There may be some serious interest, but the $150,000 is just the first buffalo over the cliff. There's another 20 to 25 million buffaloes to follow, and that's a conservative estimate. We see no point in squandering away $150,000 on an initiative that no one in their right mind on this council would pursue, when in fact, in the same sentence, they talk about our infrastructure deficit. So it's a no-starter. It wasn't something we brought forward, and certainly not something that we can support financially. There may be continued discussion with this group that would like to come here, but it'll be on their nickel, both in terms of the study and in terms of the eventual work.
Well, I think the answer is no. We have a crisis in the city, infrastructure, daycares, poverty. I think that money should go to more priority, like towards this project. So definitely, I will not support it.
When this idea first came up, I opposed spending a nickel on doing a study, because when you look at the requirements for the team, it included increasing the size of the ice surface. It included vastly increasing the number of seats. And when you take a look at the Civic Center, you quickly realize that all the things that are needed to meet the minimum requirements are not possible there. The report would end up coming back saying that it's going to be cheaper to knock it down and build new. So why spend $150,000 just to find out we can't do what it is we want to look at? And as Dan said, that's just the first buffalo over the cliff. The next step is the actual renovations. We're talking $20, $30 million, if it can even be done. I don't think it can be done, but that next $20 to $30 million would just create a huge hole in our operating, in our, not our capital budget. And that would be devastating to our deficit and not allow us to do needed infrastructure, such as upgrading the pumping stations. So this was, for me, this was a non-starter right from the word go. I supported sending this to committee because I was quite confident the committee would do what was needed and just kill this thing. Thank you.
And Tony, I think we have time for 2 more questions. This is the second to last. Go ahead.
The federal government is eliminating the tax-free portion of council remuneration, which will cost the city between $33,000 and $119,000, depending on the option chosen. Question: given the responsibility and the workload of councillors and this unavoidable cost, is now the time to move to full-time councillors for 2022?
And Ms. Dunford, we'll start with you.
I would have to say that it may be an option to look at full-time counselors. It may be a little bit more consistent in responding and communication. But I'd have to see a study of how that's working in other municipalities before I could 100% agree that we need to go to full-time counselors. Thank you.
Well, I think we have the recent experience of the City of Toronto to consider here. Certainly, if we were to embark on full-time counselors, they'd certainly need a lot fewer of us, because with that would come probably a significant budget in terms of providing constituent services and perhaps a part-time assistant. So it's certainly something worth consideration. This round of pay hikes that we just did was not supported by all members of council. I wasn't comfortable dealing with it at the time. You've heard earlier that Linda sat on the committee that has reviewed council remuneration in past, and that's really where this belongs. There's a discomfort level that arises when one is dealing with a political item that one benefits from. We were told it's not a conflict of interest by any means to vote oneself a pay raise, but it does belong with that committee, and I think it needs a fulsome examination in the community as well in terms of what they want to see politically happen here, in the next 20 years. I think it would probably be beneficial to do that. I would caution, however, that you could see exactly what you see has happened in the City of Toronto, where you have full-time career politicians, and I think the inevitable outcome of that is a disjointedness with the constituent and too cozy a relationship between councillors and municipal staff.
Well, I'll agree with Nicole. It's we need a study. I know the councillors, they spend lots of time of their lots of hours of their time between responding to emails, between going around in the ward and the city hall. It's a lot of time, but I think that there should be a case study and to see what's the impact on taxpayers, because and also I will push that question to the residents of Brantford to have a say on it. Thank you.
These are essentially 2 separate issues. The increase in cost that is being forced on the municipalities by the federal government is one thing, and we have no control over that. And it's been said that council will receive a pay increase, but what has to be remembered is even though it's an increase in gross pay, it's the exact same net pay. So for what you're taking home, councillors aren't going to see any difference. The idea of full-time councillors is something that was looked at in the last term of council and voted down. When they were looking at changing the boundaries of the wards, one of the suggestions was to go to 6 wards with 1 councillor each and have them full-time. Council of the day threw that out because some of them felt they weren't going to be one of the 6. And it's unfortunate that that kind of self-interest led to maintaining the status quo without even considering the option of full-time councillors. It is something that will have to be addressed in the future. Whether now's the right time to look at it or not is hard to say. It will certainly be an increase in wages when you go from part-time to full-time, and it might limit the number of people who are willing to run for council. If you go full-time, people who own or operate a business or who work full-time for an employer might find it difficult to be able to run for council. I'm close to retiring, so it wouldn't be a problem for me. But for some people, it would be a barrier. So it's something we have to look at very seriously. Thank you.
As I indicated earlier, in 2012, I actually chaired the Citizen Review Committee, and the mandate of that committee was to take a look at council structure. The process that we undertook for that review was to engage the residents. So we did a significant amount of community engagement in terms of getting feedback from the residents of the city of Brantford on how they felt about council structure, and full-time councillors was something that was considered at the time. The overwhelming majority of the people that we did engage, and we did everything from an online survey to open meetings, to having people call in and report their views, was that no, that they did not want full-time councillors, that they wanted that the current structure should remain in place. We also did a review of council remuneration at the time, and at that time, to be honest, as the chair of the committee, even I was not aware of the federal exemption, and that was not something that was taken into account from the standpoint of the review of remuneration. So the fact that tax loophole is being closed by the federal government and is now going to have an impact on the city budget, I'm not entirely in agreement that council wages should have been raised to offset that. The standard gross pay was already set, and as I said, I would be surprised if most of the general population was even aware that 1/3 used to be a tax-free exception.
Thank you, candidates. That's all the time we have for questions, and thank you for your answers. It's now time to move on to closing remarks. Your closing remarks are limited to 1 minute, and we're going to go in reverse order from our opening statements, and that means Ms. Dunford, you're up first.
Thank you. I'm committed to working together with the great people of Ward 3 and our city to bring fresh perspectives and points of view to our council table. I believe that as Brantford grows, it needs to embrace new ideas that will benefit everyone. We are at a crossroads, growing from a small city to a mature urban area with growing needs. The old ways and methods are no longer working and require new, fresh ideas and voices to move us forward. Thank you to the Chamber and other candidates for tonight's debate. I invite anyone who wishes to ask me any questions or get involved to contact me or visit my website, Vote Nicole. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time this evening. Thank you to the Chamber and Rogers for putting on a series of debates. I know that they've been watched. I've talked to people that are interested in engaging. I'm proud of the work that I've done over the past 30 years. My professional experience and community involvement has always been about improving the lives of others. I hope that I have demonstrated my ongoing commitment to our community and that I have earned your support as a councillor for Ward 3. I look forward to further engaging with you during the campaign to hear from you what your concerns, your issues, and your solutions are. I encourage you to become involved by reaching out to connect with me to chat about Brantford. I've already fielded several emails, phone calls, and talked to lots of people at the door, the grocery store, and in the mall. I envision an open, inclusive, barrier-free city where all residents have the opportunity to be active and engaged members of their community. On October 22nd, it's your opportunity to elect dynamic, experienced leadership to council. Elect Linda Hunt as your voice at City Hall.
As your councillor, I work to make positive changes to policies and obligations of your local government and advocate to reduce property tax increases and expenses. This priority is important, but long-term issues must also be a priority for our city. Well-managed growth of residential, commercial, and industrial sectors will be critical in the years ahead if we are to expand our potential as a city. We must implement ways to keep spending in line and develop new revenues to help offset possible tax increases. This will have to be done during a time of growth with increases in operating and capital costs. while we deal with an expanded city boundaries and the cost of maintaining or building our infrastructure needs. I am committed to continue to represent you at the council table and work to make your municipal government accountable and reliable in the work we do for the people of Brantford. I ask that you consider giving me, Greg Martin, your vote for Ward 3 Councillor on October 22nd. Thank you.
I have never held a public office, and in this case, I believe it is one reason why I am the right person for the job as your councillor. As a 21 years resident of Ward 3, I believe it's time for new ideas from residents to be heard and implemented in the City Hall. I have the ability to navigate City Hall for you, and as a builder of relationships, computer systems, and construction and engineering projects, I can help build something that we can all be proud of. What I also have is decades of community involvement as a local volunteer, and a strong desire to see my chosen adopted home become even stronger. It's time for a fresh perspective to ensure Ward 3 receives the attention it deserves. Is represented by a voice of openness and dedication. I am Nasser Hamid, and I won't take you or the job for granted. Vote Nasser Hamid. Thank you.
Thanks very much for spending some time with us this evening. We've dealt with some important topics and we've shared some pretty interesting ideas tonight. I continue to be very honored to serve as your councillor, and I'm humbled at the level of your continued support. I appreciate your support October 22nd to continue to provide you with strong, sensible leadership. And to keep me working for you, I need one of your votes that day. Thank you very much to the organizers and participants tonight, and I hope you folks at home enjoyed this.
So thank you, candidates. Thank you for answering our questions tonight. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, your experiences. I'm hopeful, and frankly, I'm sure that tonight's discussion will be helpful to the city of Brantford, and in particular those residents of Ward 3, in making their important decision on the 22nd of October. Also, thank you to Rogers for partnering again with the Chamber of Commerce to provide this opportunity for the candidates, for the residents, and of course for our business community. And a reminder, the Ward 4 candidates debate will be presented on October 1st. And thank you for joining us this evening. And to everyone, please exercise your right to vote on October 22nd. Good night.
If you want to do anything in television, here's the best place to do it because they're very hands-on. You see what goes on in the community that you might not normally see. They're people from our community, so they know and they have a heart for our community to step outside of our comfort zone and do more and learn more and take the opportunities, and then you can grow and use it. My name is Paul Bates, and I'm a volunteer at Rogers TV.
I thought I'd bring you here, back to one of the neighborhoods we looked in. Thought it was a great place for you to remember all the houses that we looked at. So we saw 3 awesome houses. The first one we saw, remember we walked in, it had that great feature wall, stone all lit. Yeah. 14-foot ceilings around the main. It was a little bit contemporary. White kitchen, separate dining room, huge master. And of course the basement had that wine wall you love so much, and the bar. And outside was the pizza oven with that beautiful pool. So the second house, a little bit more traditional feel, high ceilings as well, had the dark kitchen with the darker floors. That huge master with the fireplace in it that had the door to the exterior as well. And ensuite, also very traditional. The basement was great area, you said, for the kids. Had the big windows, that big area fireplace, the theater room, and it also had the 3 other bedrooms downstairs. The third house was that gorgeous converted farmhouse. And it was just absolutely beautiful with the stone walls inside. Had the 4 bedrooms. The backyard was absolutely spectacular. The basement still had that separate space. Had another bedroom and a bar. So, big decision.
Yeah, definitely.
Which one are you thinking about eliminating first?
I think the first one we saw was definitely just a bit too big for us.
Okay.
And as well, the basement really was more for adults.
So that brings us down to 2.
Right.
2, the converted farmhouse and that one with the beautiful cabana.
Yeah. So, the history alone on that farmhouse was just something I think we both kind of just peaked at. And then the backyard was great too, with all the space. I think on that one, the basement just was kind of the one that just didn't push it over the edge.
Okay. So tell me, what pushed it over the edge with the other one?
A pool house, the cabana.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, for the entertainment feature, because, you know, it's a process now for us to move away from Toronto. We want to make sure it's a place that our friends will come to visit and stay with us. So that is a selling feature.
Right.
And for the kids as well, to be out there, you know.
You're going to absolutely love it here, and I'm so excited that you're coming to the area. Well,
Yeah.
Congratulations on your
Thanks.
great house.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Bladder cancer. It's the 5th most common cancer in Canada. The main warning sign of bladder cancer is blood in the urine. So if you see red, see your doctor. Finding a cure for bladder cancer won't be a walk in the park, but it's a great place to start. Please show your support and register for the Bladder Cancer Canada Awareness Walk at bccwalk.ca.
The world's most famous Canadian, Grey Owl, just back from a triumphant British tour, is to be a reluctant guest at a gathering of First Nations.
Archie, you may not realize this, but right now you are the most famous Red Indian in the world. These are your people. You have to be there. Come on, Harold, let's go.
Sure, I'm sure. His name is Archie Bellini, and if he's a Red Indian, I'm the King of China.
It is an honor to meet the man called Grey Owl, who has brought much respect for our people.
Imposter, rascal, dreamer, and yet the Englishman who called himself Grey Owl awoke the whole world to our vanishing wilderness.
My brother says, men become what they dream. You have dreamed well.
This is Rogers TV.